debt colonies out of weak European countries. We say here in our program that austerity doesn't work. Varoufakis is the finance minister. He goes in these meetings with European officials where he's forbidden to talk macroeconomics. He talks about this stuff, he gets attention towards these issues, but then nothing happens. Plus, he's being viciously attacked.
He's forbidden to talk macroeconomics. Just want to make sure the audience heard that and didn't think it was microeconomics.
No, macroeconomics.
Yeah.
Now, do we really, at that point, have the luxury to think that Schäuble, the German finance minister, is unable to understand that austerity doesn't work? Because I think he does.
He does.
So then, what are they doing to Greece and the periphery of Europe? Are they trying to build a European territory where austerity and banker dictatorship is unquestionable? Has the euro become a kind of political weapon in the hands of the elite? Are they trying to transform Greece and these countries into sweatshop economies so that they can stop being dependent on China or something? So there you have it. Think about these questions and then try to answer why Varoufakis is being slandered in the way that he is.
Yeah, slander is the first sign to me that you're doing something right. Yeah, I mean, all the big financial mags this month, whether it was Bloomberg or the Wall Street Journal, talked about Greece falling back into recession. And I got a message from a stranger on Facebook. He said, "Why do you like Syriza? They seem like a bunch of bums and they're failing."
This is propaganda, Daniela. Right. I want to talk a little bit about this.
Yes,
and
please.
How statistics are used in tricky ways to serve rhetorical purposes. When I say rhetorical, I mean, political propaganda. Mm-hmm. This, as you said.
Well, here in the U.S.
Yes.
Sorry, I feel like I keep interrupting you. But here in the U.S., like, all the emphasis is off the banks in all directions, left and right. Like, I was talking earlier about how we're all pawns in this organized deflection campaign off of the speculators. And that's the break. Let's continue on the other side. This is Daniela Walls hosting for Dr. Webster Tarpley. We have so much left to cover in this episode. We never get to anything, Michael. We an hour and a half long, but it goes so fast. We were talking on the other side about how all the emphasis, and I was getting angry, is off the speculators. We're all in this organized campaign of smoke off these speculators, and they use this rhetoric like the 99 versus 1 or income inequality to deflect from the possibility of a radical systemic overhaul of the banking system. And this is why banking oligarchs own political foundations and think tanks. The left here is putting the burden on the people with increased taxes, and the banks and markets that have caused everything are never called out. The Philadelphia Amtrak crash, who knows what the left will call for, but if the fear is, it's going to be a larger tax burden on the people for infrastructure. That shouldn't be the case. The Fed has to provide the same loans as usual. We've said this, that they give to Wall Street to rebuild and put the money back into the system with a Wall Street transaction tax, and demand the GOP Congress stop looting, underfunding Amtrak using a Wall Street sales tax and Fed policies and no privatization. Enough is enough. Okay,
as you said, we read this month that Greece has plunged back into recession. Mm-hmm. I read here from Bloomberg, Greece returns to recession as bailout impasse drains economy. The Wall Street Journal says Greece falls back into recession. Reuters, we read Greek economy slips back into recession in first quarter.
Right. I was reading those articles too, and the thing is, they cited that it was Syriza's policies were the reason. Yeah. But, what policies? I mean, they've been in government for, 4 months now, and it seems like the EU are trying to stall everything and not even let them implement their program.
Yeah, it's exactly the same in all Greek mainstream media. Like you said, This is an attempt to discredit the new left-wing government in Greece. They also give a reason behind the supposed recession. There is instability, loss of confidence, and the pressure on the real economy because of the prolonged period of negotiations between Greece and its lenders. So, in other words, what they're saying is, don't you dare question the Washington consensus. Oh, and by the way, stop whining and go on implementing it. You know?
And is that true? I mean, I sure still don't remember any recovery. What's the real story? Like, was there any recovery? I mean, okay, what are the examples of a recovery? Is there a subsequent recession now as compared to the stated recovery?
To put it simply, no.
Okay.
There are two problems with that narrative, so I need a second to explain this.
Okay.
First of all, they say new recession, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What they're referring to is that the GDP produced during the first trimester of 2015 was less than the GDP produced during the last trimester of 2014. Now, stick with me for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, this isn't called a recession. To call something recession or growth, you have to compare it to the corresponding period of time of the previous year. So, compared to the first trimester of last year, the first trimester of this year showed a 0.3% increase in GDP. And that's the way you judge whether there's growth or recession, by looking at numbers on an annual basis. And on an annual basis, we had the first trimester of this year closing with a marginal 0.3% growth. This is practically stabilization. It's nothing important. But there is also a second point here. They say recession is back, which implies that there had been a recovery. Right?
Yeah, that's right. What's the recovery they're referring to?
They are referring to the quote-unquote real GDP growth of 0.8% in 2014.
Okay, so it's just abstract numbers on a page. Was there 0.8% growth in 2014?
Well, yes, but no. Here's what happened.
Okay.
Nominal GDP fell from that of 2013. So nominally, Greece had a recession in 2014, but real GDP, that's a term used, expansion or contraction, also takes account of the inflation rate. So in 2014, nominal GDP fell, but prices fell even more quickly. There was price contraction also, what's called deflation. If you combine these two numbers, it gives you a very small real GDP growth. And they call that a recovery. Truth is, this is no recovery. It's a depression.
So, another smokescreen and confusion put up by the central bankers and their media arm, like we do, big circular distraction from the reality that we're all victims of depression because of banks. All of us.
Yeah, what they are trying to tell us is Greece had an austerity government in 2014. So 2014 was a year of recovery, which 2014 was not, and now they have an anti-austerity government, and 2015 is showing signs of a return to recession. The truth, if anything, Daniela, is the complete opposite.
Yes.
There is no reason for the Greek economy to grow because there's no investment. But the economy has stabilized in this near-death condition precisely because there haven't been any new austerity measures taken by this new government yet.
That's super interesting. So there hasn't been new investment, yet there's because of this propaganda, but yet there's stabilization because there's also no austerity cuts.
Yes, that's how low.
Austerity creates stabilization.
Yes, that's how low the Greek economy is actually. It's in such a bad shape that just by leaving it alone, it tends to stay where it is because there's no new austerity, which people have by now come to expect all the time.
Yeah, we're conditioned to think that austerity is normal and it's all our own fault. I'm wondering through this, what effect this campaign has on the progress of the negotiations between the Greek government and the EU.
The Greek government has found itself in a very rough situation. The other side seems to be committed to the dogma of austerity and all the old ways, the terms of the previous bailout programs. They are blackmailing with a Grexit. In other words, we'll kick you out of the euro, you know.
So the point is that the propaganda campaign is contributing negatively to the negotiation process.
Yes, yes. And at that point, Daniela, if you allow me, I want to get a little bit into geopolitics.
Yes, I want you to get into geopolitics, and I want you to take your time, but remember that this is our last segment, and we always promise this every week, but with all the traveling, I just want to fill in this before, because I know the music's going to come, and then we're going to have our voices get scrambled, and then when the show's over. So we have to promise to finish this on United Front Radio and do this with Kyle this week, because we never get to finish the points we're trying to make, because we always run out of time. So for the remainder of the show, please talk about the geopolitical situation and take your time, but we'll finish this in an hour-long discussion, because I know that you and I have so much to talk about when it comes to this, and there's some big points to be made.
Yeah. So things are not looking good. We may yet have an actual world crisis ahead of us, not just radio, a real world crisis. This matter is so complicated.
It's not funny. We're headed. There's very scary things on the horizon that are possible.
Yeah, I can't even begin to explain, and time is short, but I'll try to simplify things as much as possible and just pose a few questions for our listeners to think about. Europe is strategically important. Europe is NATO's hub for the control of countries in Russia's West Front. But the question is, what does Europe have to offer these countries anymore? What can these peoples of Europe expect? Becoming dead colonies like Greece has been the last 5 years? So on the one hand, you have this attempt by the West to control these countries, and on the other hand, you have the BRICS becoming a big world power.
Michael, that's the end of the show. We're going to finish this on United Front Radio.